Hello one and all, welcome to Slay the Spire 2, my name is Sean Splains, and we've been working through our run as the silent character. Today we're going to get through Act 2, and we'll just get right into it. Here we have Tezcatara again, and we have two different options and one of the same option from our last attempt. We have the pumpkin candle again, which as we saw last time gave us an extra energy at the start of each turn, but it extinguishes at the start of Act 3. For this reason, outside of discovering it as something to put into your compendium at the end of the game, I don't really see the point in taking this. Very rare that I would ever take it. Big Hug allows us to remove 4 cards, but whenever we shuffle our draw pile, add a suit into our draw pile, which is a status card that's unplayable. And as you'll notice, unlike Dazed, this is not ethereal, so this will stay in your deck for the rest of the combat, which makes this quite a high risk relic. Although it seems really good to remove 4 cards, having too many suits in your hand and drawing them too often would be a bit too much of a drawback for me. I think if you have like 25 cards here, you would comfortably take this, but because we only have 17, I would remove 2 strikes and 2 defense here. I would only have 1 defend, we've got 3 powers, so at that point we would only have 10 cards to get through. 4 powers, sorry. We would have 9 cards to get through, which means every 2 turns we would add a suit, which is just, for the boss battle, that seems too much for me. So in that case, we're going to take quite a safe option of Yummy Cookie, which allows us to upgrade 4 cards. And here, I'm going to upgrade Cloak and Dagger, so we get the extra Shiv. Abrasive, so we get 2 Thorns. Outbreak, so we get the extra 4 damage here. And Bouncing Flask, so we get the extra 1 bounce, which will help synergize with Outbreak. Here we want to think about our path now. We got our membership card, which means we can spend a lot less money at our next shop, so we probably want a late shop if we can afford to go for it. I'm liking the look of this path on the right here that gives us a double shop, which means if we don't like anything here, we can go to this one. And then we still got our 2 elites, we still get 3 bonfires. It's pretty much a perfect route for me. So we'll go right, we'll take 2 hallways, 1 mystery, another hallway, another mystery, another hallway, bonfire, free treasure room, merchant, bonfire, elite, merchant, elite, bonfire, and then the boss, which thankfully again is another boss, so we'll get to discuss that later on. Firstly, we'll go into the combat. And here we have a different enemy from what we saw last time as well. We have the bowl bugs. There are 3 different bowl bugs. We'll discuss the other one when we see it eventually. This one is called Nectar. It's going to do 3 damage just now, but then next turn it's going to buff itself to give itself an extra 14 strength, I believe, or 15 strength. So at that point it's going to become much more dangerous than the one in front. And the one in front will consistently just do 15 damage over and over and over again, but if you can block it fully, it will become stunned for a turn and not attack you. So the puzzle in this fight is to try and find yourself in a position where you're able to block this guy consistently, kill the enemies behind him, and then finish him off. Here, unfortunately, we don't get a lot of block cards, so we'll just have to take a defend, and we'll poison stab the guy in the back. We will take 8 damage, which isn't ideal, but here, fortunately, we will be able to block enough so we can stun him and finish this guy off in the same turn ideally. As much as I should really be hitting him with this to weaken him, there's not really much point because I know I can block him anyway, and I just need to get damage down on the guy in the back. We'll play Survivor into Untouchable so that we're now blocking a perfect amount, but we still can play this card because it gives us the shivs. And now the guy in the back's dead. As we saw with the power up, this guy's stunned for a turn, so we actually get the freedom to get Venom on so we can start poisoning him. We'll use Neutralize to bring his strength down to 11, which makes it much easier to stun him again. Playing flechettes would have ended the battle, so again, it's keeping an eye on your outs all the time. It's not the end of the world because we can still finish the combat without taking any more damage, but always look at your hand before you play, otherwise you'll make mistakes like me. Here we have 3 different cards. One which I love and is almost always a snap pick with this character. Being able to block and draw cards gives us more variety and more options and allows us to block a lot of damage, which on this build is very, very good. It goes up to 8 when upgraded. Accuracy is one of your imperative cards when you're playing a Shiv build, as it allows you to deal an extra 4 damage, which would make these 8. Or if you get upgraded, it becomes 6, which makes these 10 for free. If we remember back to the Blade Dance card that we didn't take, that means that we would have got 4 shivs if that was upgraded, doing 10 damage each for 1 energy. We would have been doing 40 damage for for 1 energy. Going on to the Haze card, it's another Sly card that applies 4 poison to all enemies. In this case, because I'm trying to highlight a poison build, I'm going to take Haze, although Backflip would have also been a good choice, and if we see another one, I might take it. We'll neutralise so that we can get him down to only dealing that much damage. We can actually get away with dealing a flechettes, and then we can play Survivor, so we're taking 0. The gimmick in this fight is this enemy is going to burrow himself underground with his buff and give himself a large amount of block. Then he will start doing a lot of damage and we will need to remove his block before he will then come up and he will be stunned. 2 ways around this are using a lot of poison, which we have available to us, or getting big damage prepared for the next turn to hopefully get him out of his burrowed state. Here, as much as I could envenom, I'm actually just going to play Bouncing Flask to get all that poison on him. And then I'll play a couple of shivs to deal a bit of damage. So here he's got 32 block, now moved down to 29 because of the Mercury Hourglass, and he's in a state of burrowed. So he's going to be doing 23 damage every single turn until we get him out of the ground. So we really need to try and get him out of there, and we would have loved to see more energy, more defend cards this turn, but unfortunately we really don't get them. I'll hit him with that, and we will block with this. Fortunately that means we're taking a lot of damage, definitely the most we've taken so far in the videos. And then we need to figure out if we can either A, kill him with poison, which we would need to add another 12 poison to him, or get him out of his bubble by dealing 17 damage. And I think we can deal 17 here. We'll play 6, we'll play 6, and then we'll hit him with 2 shivs. Now he comes out and he's stunned for the turn. Then he's going to deal 13 damage, and then if he was still alive after this 13 damage, he would repeat the process and go back underground and give himself block. So ideally you always want to be killing him in this first rotation. Here we get a couple of new cards. Cloak and Dagger, as I've shown, is a very good card. I might pick it again here because it's just more block that also gives me damage. Dagger Spray is a good answer if we need AoE damage, as it hits all enemies twice for 4 damage or 6 when upgraded. And Leading Strike is a really good card on a Shiv build, as it can do the same amount as a strike, plus it also adds 2 shivs into your hand. I don't have any AoE other than the Outbreak power, so I would be tempted by Dagger Spray. But I'm going to take Cloak and Dagger because, again, I want to just keep getting block cards. Here we get Centennial Puzzle, a new relic, which the first time you lose HP each combat, draw 3 cards. This is very good to use tactically in certain turns. If we used it on the Ironclad in our last game, we could have hurt ourselves to let ourselves draw more cards, which is one mechanic. 2, you will just naturally take damage and you will gain more cards. And another option is you can purposefully leave yourself with 1 HP that you'll be hit through so that you can get more cards to draw for next turn. That's probably how we'll be using it mostly in this run. Here I really want to try and mitigate the damage I'm taking, so I'm going to use my energy potion. I think here I'm going to use the flechettes to kill the guy in the back, so I'm only worrying about this 15 damage. Then I'll use Cloak and Dagger and defend so that I can stun him. And then we will hit this guy. As much as I just killed the one in the back without explaining him, he'll just do a medium amount of damage every time and land debuffs on us. And this new one, the Silk Bow Bug, will apply Weaken on us and then deal multi-hit attack. So we want to kill him to stop us being weakened, which allows us to deal more damage. We want to block him so that he doesn't stun us. And we want to kill the guy in the back so that he doesn't also leave debuffs on us. Weaken him here so he's only doing 6. We'll apply our Outbreak, which will help us in future turns. We'll block for the turn and we'll try and kill the Silk Bug before we kill the Rock Bug. Getting unfortunate with defense again. We'll only be able to block for a certain amount here. So we'll take 2 damage, and there, that was a perfect example of taking a small amount of damage to give us more cards to then have more variety on this turn. Here we're going to do Cloak and Dagger to give us 2 shivs. And then another Cloak and Dagger for another shiv, while we use a strike here and use an attack there. And now we should probably be able to finish this guy off. We'll use Envenom to get an extra bit of poison onto him. And then we'll finish him off with Poison Stab. Here we get one of the best potions in the game, as regarded by most people, Fairy in a Bottle. When your HP would be reduced to 0, instead this potion is discarded and you heal to 30% of your max HP. This is effectively a revival item, and you don't get very many of those in the game. The other option is there's a relic called Lizard Tail that revives you to 50% of your max HP and is only one use. But we'll talk more about that if we get it in a future run. We'll take the fairy in the bottle. We don't ever need to actually click it and click the drink button. It will automatically be used when you fall to 0. Here we have a few good options. Follow through we saw earlier on, we saw how that works. I'm not going to be taking it here. Well-laid plans is considered one of the best powers for this character because retain is a really strong power to have. This means that if we are playing a turn and we have too many block cards but we don't need them, we could actually retain one of those block cards for next turn so that we won't have more turns like the one we had there where we took 15 damage because I didn't draw enough block cards, which does happen from time to time. Or we could hold on to something that synergizes well with something else. Like we could hold on to Abrasive repeatedly until we get our Survivor to help us discard it and actually use it. Or we have Pinpoint, which does a lot of damage, and similarly to Stomp on the Ironclad character, which is every time you play an attack it reduces in cost from 3. This is every time you play a skill, this reduces in cost from 3. So effectively we could use 3 block cards to heal for about 20 damage, and then we could also deal 19 damage in return. In a deck where you're suffering from a lack of damage, Pinpoint is very, very useful. But I think I'm going to play the Well-Laid plans to help us retain cards. Colossal Flower. There is a colossal flower growing atop a mountain of bones. As its colour shifting petals pulsate, you sense there is a powerful cluster of pollen in the centre, but the undulating petals are razor sharp and unpredictable. You could grab some of the golden nectar, but reaching the prize in the centre is so tempting. Extract the nectar for 35 gold, or enter deeper and lose 5 HP. Here it's definitely worth going for the relic which lies within, and we'll explain it on a run where we do go for it, but because we have a big limitation in our complete and utter lack of health without being able to go straight into a bonfire and heal right away, I'm just going to take the 35 gold here. It also works well because we have the membership discount anyway, and the gold's always nice to have. Here we have the Louse Progenitor, who's going to debuff his turn 1 and apply 9 damage. They also have a buff for themselves called Curl Up, which is every time I hit them, they will go into a block state which I have to burst through. So we'll play After Image, our essential card. We'll block. We'll hit him once. He now goes up to 14 damage. 14 block, sorry. Hit him with a poison, hit him with a shiv. We don't take any damage. And apologies for my misconception beforehand, the curl up only lasts once, but I think he can buff himself to get it again. Here we're going to play Well-Laid Plans and Venom, and then we're going to keep Outbreak, we'll keep Defend, because he's going to attack next turn. So here he goes into his curl up state automatically to give himself 14 block, and he's going to deal 14 back to us. So we just want to try and block to not take any damage this turn, and then we'll keep a hold of Abrasive so that we can hopefully draw our discard and get to discard it, which we do. So here we'll discard Abrasive, which means we now have +1 dexterity, and we now have 9 thorns, so every time he hits us he's going to take 9 damage. I'm going to play Flechettes, and I'm going to play Cloak and Dagger. Here I'll keep a Defend. As you can see, the retain ability to always keep an extra card is very useful. And because of the Envenom, we want to try and play as many attacks in a turn as possible. Then here we'll play Sly for fun, and we'll win from the poison damage. On this turn we have Skewer, which we've seen before, Sucker Punch, which is another way to apply Weaken, and when we upgrade it, it becomes 2 Weaken and 10 damage for 1 energy, which makes it a very, very good attack for us because we only have 1 form of Weaken at the moment, but we also have Piercing Wail. A card that exhausts itself when it's used, and it allows all enemies to lose strength for 8 strength for the turn. So if you're finding yourself in a turn with a lot of enemies that are going to deal damage to you, the best example for me is in the start of Act 3, like we saw in our last video, when we had the little scrolls that deal a lot of damage to you and make you lose max health. This basically means they don't do any damage for the turn, and you have the freedom to do whatever you want. Any battles that have more than one enemy, this is a very, very strong card, and some people like to take 1 or 2 of these into their deck, so I'm going to take one as well here. I think it's a very good defensive card. Here we can heal for 16, or we can smith, and I think healing is probably a good idea. We can get another one here anyway where we'll probably smith, but we might get a better card in this shop that we might want to over the ones that we have at the moment. So always keep your options as open as possible and take everything into consideration. Here we get Horncleat, which means at the start of turn 2 we're automatically going to gain 14 block. Now that we've hit the shop, we can see that we've got 2 rare cards to pick from, which is very cool. We also have our colourless cards, our production, which gives us 2 energy and it exhausts itself, or if we upgrade it, it becomes 3 energy, so that's good, especially because we don't have any energy manipulation at the moment. Entropy, as I mentioned, I'm not particularly fond of this card, so I'm probably not going to take it here. Our relic options are Bag of Preparation, which I think is one of the best relics in the game, giving you the ability to get an extra 2 cards at the start of your combat, which for this character means you start with 9 cards in your hand, and it's a snap pick for me, so we're taking that. We have Gremlin Horn again, which you gain an energy and draw a card when you kill something. And then we have Cauldron, which is the shop only relic that allows us to brew 5 random potions. If we don't like the options here and we have some spare money kicking about, this can be good to try and potentially get another fairy in a bottle or a different rare potion that's really good. We're also going to remove a card, so we're going to remove a defend. Again, my rule of thumb is to try and keep these overall balanced, but since I'm silent, I will remove a strike before a defend and make sure that the last card that I would remove is a defend, since defends are arguably more valuable than strikes are. Here in the power slot we have Tools of the Trade, which allows us to draw an extra card every single turn, but we also have to discard a card every single turn. For us, this is invaluable since we have some Sly cards, and this means we don't need to draw the specific Sly card. We can just automatically discard a card at the start of each turn and play it. So I'm taking this. Another very good option is Burst, which allows us to play the next skill an extra time, but if we upgrade it, it's the next 2 skills an extra time. So instead of playing 2 cards, I'm effectively playing 4 other cards after we touch this, which is good if we have enough enough energy to do so. For example, a really good option would be Cloak and Dagger, because that would give us 12 block and 4 shivs into our hand. Or if we were to do something like Bouncing Flask and apply 3 poison 8 times instead of 4, so we're going to take Burst. And then because I don't have any energy manipulation at the moment, as much as this is quite greedy, I am going to take a Production. I'm also going to take Calculated Gamble. I know this is kind of against a lot of things I was saying, you don't want to take a lot of things into your deck, but this Calculated Gamble is kind of a free card like we discussed in our last game with the Ironclad, with things that help you draw. This allows you to discard your current hand and draw that many cards, and it exhausts itself. So it removes itself from your deck after you play it, meaning your card efficiency is automatically back to normal. It only costs 0, so you don't even have to use energy to play it, and you get to draw through your cards, which for me, since I have Sly cards, I could potentially play multiple Sly cards in one turn and get a whole new hand to use more energy. So I'm taking that as well. This unfortunately means that at the next shop I really won't have a lot of money to spend at it, but I could still pick up something potentially good. And here I'm now really glad that I didn't smith on the last one and I healed on the last one, because now I can pick one of these cards to smith and make more powerful. I'm going to choose Tools of the Trade because then it becomes 0 cost, which makes it easier to play every time. And here we fight the Entomancer again. We saw him in the last act, and as we saw, every time we hit him, he's going to put Dazed into our draw pile. But thankfully with this deck, we don't really hit too many times. We're more focused on adding poison to him. So here we're going to use Production, which puts us up to our 5. We're going to play After Image, which we should have really played first, but it's fine. We're going to use Calculated Gamble right away. This allows us to draw 6 more cards and discard our whole previous hand, and we get to activate the Sly card. So already paying dividends. We'll weaken him so he does a little bit less damage and we've got less pressure, and then we didn't even really need to do that because we can play all these defense. Because of the 9 thorns, he just dealt 63 damage to himself because of that, putting him down to 72 already. Now here we're going to use our Cloak and Dagger to get a bit of block. Because of the Horn Cleat we already had 14. There's me messing up again. Don't worry, it will happen more. I tend to click before I think sometimes. We get our 12 poison down, which is good. And here, as much as I have the shivs, because I don't want to get any more dazeds into my draw pile, and most importantly I want to play this Tools of the Trade, I'm actually just going to end the turn here. Now he's going to go into his buff, we're going to play Tools of the Trade for free, we're going to play Outbreak for free, and then we'll just end the turn. And now we get to draw an extra card, and as it's highlighted we can then click on this and it'll activate. We deal our 3 damage from our Hourglass. We'll weaken him, and then we'll defend, and we'll deal a big bit of damage to him so that he will kill himself before he does damage to me. There we go. Get our gold, take our attack potion. Bag of Marbles, again, as we saw last time, is very good. And here we've got some interesting options. We have our rare card, Storm of Steel, which discards our entire hand, again going with our discard synergy, and replaces the entire hand with a Shiv for each card discarded. If you upgrade this, it's Shiv pluses, which means they do 6 damage, and this would be particularly good if we had the Unceasing Top relic that we had in our last videos. If you don't remember, the Unceasing Top is a relic that means that when you run out of cards in your hand, you will keep drawing 1 card until you stop playing cards. So you could discard your whole hand for 1 energy, still have 2 energy, play all of your Shivs, and then play another couple of cards as they get drawn out for you. Unfortunately, since we don't have that, I'm not that keen on taking this. Here we have Up My Sleeve, which gives us 4 Shivs at the cost of 2 energy, but every time you play this card it costs 1 less. So if you're in a long-winded fight and you play this twice, it's then going to be 0 cost to give you 4 Shivs, which is really, really good in a long battle. Or we have Leg Sweep, which is another form of Weaken, which gives us 3 Weaken and 14 block for 2. Now, 7 block for 1 doesn't sound that great, but applying 3 Weaken is excellent for us, especially since we don't have many forms of Weaken at the moment. I'm going to take Leg Sweep. Here we'll go into our next shop, and we do have a few options. We could take another Abrasive and get even more Thorns and even more Dexterity. That would be great. Deadly Poison is a basic skill that gives you 5 poison, but it goes up to 7 poison when upgraded. As much as that's only 12, I don't really want it that much. Flick Flack is another Sly card that whenever we discard it, it'll do 6 damage to all enemies, or when upgraded, 8 damage to all enemies. Slice is a 0 cost card that does 6 damage or 9 damage. We've seen Bolas before, we've seen Dark Shackles before, we got Ornamental Fan in our last game. That would work really well with this character because of the Shivs, but we're not going to take it obviously because we don't have enough money. We saw Dragon Fruit last time, which whenever you gain gold, you gain max HP. Here we have every 3 turns you draw an extra card, which is a very tempting option. A second Abrasive is a tempting option, and simply removing cards is a really good option. Here, I think because I took so many cards in the last shop, as much as I might want to take another one here, I think I'm going to just remove a strike and call it a day at that. Pendulum would have been a really good option as well, but I think that was the safer decision for me. This is the Infected Prism. The first time you hit him each turn, you're going to get an energy back. So if you're concerned about the amount of damage that he's doing, just remember to throw out an attack to him. We'll obviously play After Image first so that we can get our block every attack. We'll just hit him with the neutralize, and then we get our energy back. This will happen every single turn, so try and remember to do that. Now we're going to use Production to allow us to use more of our cards. We'll use Well Laid Plans, we'll use Outbreak, Poison Stab, Cloak and Dagger, and Defend. So now we're not taking any damage, he's weakened for a couple of turns, and we get to keep the strike because of the Well Laid Plans. His attack pattern is going to be doing a bigger attack, followed by a smaller attack that gives him about 27 block, I believe. We'll confirm it next turn. And then he'll do a big triple attack. So hopefully we'll be drawing Piercing Wail next turn, and we'll get to see a lot of efficiency out of it. Although, because I'm going to play Calculate Gamble, we'll probably see it this turn. So here we're just going to play Gamba. We'll get Abrasive, we'll get Haze, We'll get Tools of the Trade. We're going to keep a hold of this and not use it. Because it exhausts when we use it, we might get to draw it again and use it on him next turn still. Or even just retain it. Again, look at me forgetting things. You can still have played this game a lot and still forget things when they're right in front of you. Now we get to play Piercing Wail, and he's doing 3 times 3, so we've already fully blocked his damage. So I'm going to just play Envenom so that future unblocked damage is going to do a lot. I'm going to keep Burst so that I can play my spell cards twice. Don't know why I said spell cards. I can play my skill cards twice. And then we'll do Burst into Bouncing Flask, which will proc this twice. And a third time. We're up to 44 poison. So as you can see, the poison builds can get very fun very quickly. 42 gold, and now unfortunately we have Orichalcum. Usually this is very good on characters because if you don't have any block at the end of your turn, you're going to gain 6 block. But we have counter synergy at the moment in Afterimage. Because we are gaining 1 block automatically every card we play, we will basically never see usage out of this Orichalcum. But it can be useful on other builds where you don't have that automatic block generation and you want to just deal a lot of damage and then get 6 back. It's also good to note that it's more powerful than a single defend card. That's how bad defend cards are. You only get 5 block out of that, and that gives you 6. So if you're in the very, very early game, and you only have 1 or 2 relics, and one of them is Orichalcum, and you only have a deck that really has strikes and defends, you would rather play 3 strikes and let the Orichalcum give you block than play a defend. Here we have 2 new options. We've got the Deflect, which we've seen before. We've got Anticipate, which is an interesting card, but not one that I often pick. It allows you to gain 2 dexterity this turn, or 3 dexterity this turn when upgraded, which means all of your block that turn is going to be more powerful. It's like a lesser version of the Shadow Meld, which doubled block gain. And here we have Blur, which we are going to take. This allows us to get 5 block, or 8 when upgraded, and your block is not removed at the start of your next turn. And this synergizes really well with our Burst card, which allows us to play skills twice, which means our block will not be removable for 2 turns. This allows us to stack up block over 3 turns technically if you base the one that you're on. And even if we can rotate back into it and get through our deck fast enough, we could keep a big amount of block for big attacking enemies and be more safe over time. Here, as much as I took the safer path last time and decided to heal when I didn't need to, I'm going to go the other way this time and decide to try and smith. And the one I'm going to do is Calculated Gamble. This allows us to retain the card so that we can play it whenever we want and we don't have to play it when we see it. Our boss this time, instead of the Sandworm, is the Knowledge Demon. This has an interesting mechanic, and I think it's best that I just play the battle and explain it as it goes. We'll play our Afterimage because we want to first turn, and as much as we have the Retain, I think it's important that we just play the Calculated Gamble turn 1. It'll allow us to get our haze off with the Sly, and it gives us 7 other options within here, which ideally would be powers, so that we can get our powers off turn 1. We get our Tools of the Trade right away, which is very good. We get our Well-Laid Plans. And we get to neutralise, which is nice. And then we'll take this. We'll keep our production in our hand so that we can potentially use that next turn if we want. And now we hit the gimmick of the fight. So this enemy every 4 turns is going to force us to make a choice. On the left here at the moment we have at the end of your turn takes 6 damage. I will say that this damage applies to your block and it doesn't attack your health directly. And Mind Drop, which forces me to draw fewer cards each turn. Generally the strategy around this fight for me is always taking Disintegration, but there can be instances where you have ways to get around the lesser cards because you have so much draw, which we do have, but I also believe I have so much block that this isn't going to be an issue. Turn 2, we have the Horn Cleat giving us 14, but as much as this says 12, we need to remember that we're taking 6 every turn, so technically he's actually doing 18 damage this turn, so we will need to do a little bit more to get out of this situation. Because of Tools of the Trade, we draw an extra card, so I can use Abrasive. And then we can play Envenom and play Defend. Here I'm actually going to use the production and then play Bouncing Flask. And then I'm going to keep Piercing Wail for next turn because I know that he's going to hit me with a triple attack. So the mechanic of this fight is now going to be he debuffs and makes you pick a card that's going to give you a strong debuff for the rest of the battle. He'll hit you with a single attack, then he'll hit you with a very strong triple attack, and then he will heal, and then he will make you have another choice again, so it's on a 4-turn cycle. Here we get a choice to discard again. Since I'm doing the Piercing Wail, I'm going to take him down. It won't quite be 2 times 3 because he's not weakened anymore. Never mind, talking rubbish. It will be 2 times 3. So I don't need block cards basically is what I'm trying to ramble on about. He's now doing 6 damage, so we only need to block 6, but we also get to see Blur. So we can play that, and then that block is now going to last into next turn. I'm going to play Outbreak though. And we also never took into consideration about the 6 damage that we're going to take from Disintegration. But we'll say that that was calculated and I did it on purpose so that we got the Centennial Puzzle to proc. Yep, I meant to do that. Then we're going to discard the Haze so that we put more poison on him. We love to see Flechettes in this situation because we've already got the Envenom active, which means this is going to proc 5 times and make Outbreak hit him a couple of times, so we deal quite a lot of damage. And then we are going to hit him with a Leg Sweep. Next turn I know that he's not going to hit me because he's going to be doing the debuff, so I'm going to take Bouncing Flask and use next turn as an opportunity to use it. This turn he does no damage, he heals 30 HP, gives himself 2 strength. We'll remove a Defend since we don't need it. And here I'm going to burst into Bouncing Flask. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're up at 54 poison already, so at this point he is going to die pretty much automatically in 3 turns. And the second decision that you have to make is, do you want to take another 7? To reiterate, this is not 7, it's actually 13 because it's your 6 plus your previous 7. And Sloth means I can no longer play more than 3 cards a turn, which is really bad for me. So I'm going to take the Disintegration, and now you'll see this go up to 13. We can play the Haze, which poisons him a little bit more, and now he's technically doing 27 damage. So I need to try and account for that. So we'll take a Blur, and we'll take the Defend, we'll take a couple of Shivs, and we'll take a Poison. And after all of that, because we're at 66 poison, we don't even need to worry about taking the damage anymore. And like that, we really didn't need to heal, so I'm glad that I didn't. We get our 100 gold as usual, and we get a choice of 3 rare cards once again. We've seen Burst before, we've got one and it's working very well. We've seen Shadow Meld before. We also now have Fan of Knives, which gives us 4 Shivs, or when upgraded, 5 Shivs. And it's a power that means that Shivs hit all enemies from now on. This is really good to solve certain fights that have more than one enemy in them. But I don't think I need this despite all of my Shiv synergy that I have at the moment. I think a Shadow Meld could now be really good because I could burst into a Blur to give myself 2 turns where I don't lose my block at the end of the turn, and then I could Shadow Meld and gain a lot so that I can focus on attack on a following turn. So I'm going to take this card. And like that, we find ourselves back in Act 3, this time with a different Ancient. But we're going to explore that in our next video. So here we're going to take a break. Thank you for watching and playing along with me. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm excited to join you in the next one. I'll see you then.